you've had you were a manager under a guy that, if you would draw a comparison, J.D. Martinez, he's known as like a hitting savant. You had Carlos Delgado, who back in the day kept a book of every at bat. Are the two of them somewhat similar in the way they approach studying the art of hitting, and what made those two guys such great hitters?
Well, first of all, two real pros. Carlos is probably the best hitter I've ever been around. When you combine everything, the power, the hitting ability, run producer, you name it. I don't think he got as much credit as he deserved. But he was playing too in the back in time before he had all the info that you have nowadays, right? So everything he kept track of, and he's the only one I ever saw do that. After each at bat, he'd go in there and sit, like you said, and take some notes, right? And then, so no telling what he would have done with today's info. And then, of course, this has really helped JD turn into the hitter along his career. All the info he knows precisely what he's looking for and how to use it. So, the game's changed so much. Bottom line, both of them are great hitters, but Delgado's definitely the best I've ever been around.
It's interesting you mentioned all the information that's available to them and the way the game has changed and the way analytics are used. But it's also interesting that I don't know if analytics can tell the comfortability of certain players in certain spots. You take a look at what Francisco Lindor has done since he's been moved to the leadoff spot. What is it about certain slots in the lineup? I know for years Starling Marte loved the number 2 slot. What is it about where they hit in the order that makes a batter player comfortable?
It's a good question, because I don't know necessarily if there's a lot to it, but I will say this. Being around as long as I have, what bothers players when they bounce around from spot to spot, especially your prime players, right? Your big guys. I've had many guys complain about, don't take them with the lineup, this and that. So that's real, The fact that where they come up, maybe it's a psychological thing. You can tell them they could be hitting a certain spot. You can tell them they're hitting in another spot. It probably wouldn't affect him, right? Because it's still at bat. I will say there is something to who's hitting in front of you, who's hitting behind you. But that's one of those mystery questions. You never really know in this game. But they get in that comfort zone. They like it. As far as Lindor, he's got off to a slow start. And my understanding, he's kind of a perennial slow starter. But ever since, he's been locked in. He's been a huge part of our team. And it's beyond me that he's not an all-star this year. And that's what's wrong with the game. If he's not an all-star, something's wrong with the game. But to certain guys, it matters more where they hit. But bottom line, if you're a good hitter, you're a good hitter.
Did it bother you at all where you hit, or you just wanted to be in the lineup?
Well, I tell you what, man, I couldn't hit in any of those spots, so I don't know. That's what I'm talking about. See?
You mentioned Lindor, and you take a look at the turnaround of this team, and it was a team meeting that he spearheaded, but everyone had a voice. You've been around a lot of teams, you've managed a lot of teams, you've seen a lot of team meetings that don't have an effect. Last year, obviously, they weren't able to turn around. What do you think was the difference in this particular team meeting that allowed them to turn the season around?
I don't know. For not being in there hearing it, I know they had one. I think if you look at it, we just got a good team, man. We got some good players, and it was just, I always felt, I think the majority of the coaching staff, just a matter of time before things clicked. We weren't hit much early in the season. In our pitching, especially our bullpen was carrying us. And we started hitting, and it's kind of the way it works in the game, though. When it all comes together, everything's clicking at the same time, is when you go on those incredible runs, And we still think we got that in us, but usually, when talented teams have meetings, they usually are a good thing, and they get good results. Teams with less talent have meetings. Usually, everything stays status quo. So that's all I can tell you.
And lastly, you've been Carlos's right-hand man the whole season. What have you seen from him as a first-year manager, weathering the peaks and valleys so far?
I think he's done a great job. If you sit back and look objectively, he deserves a lot of credit for keeping our team from going under. Right? We had that tough start to the season. 0-5, could have been 0-6. We had that late comeback. But we could have disappeared early, right? Then we got a nice little roll, climbed back in and played really good ball. Then we hit that slide again. And it got, 7, 8, 9, below 500, whatever. And we could have very easily gone the other way and just disappeared, right? But he stayed positive. He stayed focused. He kept communicating with these guys and knowing that talent's going to rise up, right? And sure enough, we climbed out of that hole, got right back into this thing. So a lot of times people don't recognize that, but he really helped hold us together to keep us from disappearing and being irrelevant at this time.
Awesome.